My name is Sandra. I'm 34 years old. And 4 years ago, my sister Betty ripped my world apart when she stole my husband. Last night at a high-end gala in Denver, she turned around, saw me standing there, radiant, holding the hand of a man who rebuilt my life from the ground up, and her face froze. Before I dive into how her jaw dropped when she saw who I was with, let me ask, where are you watching from? Hit that subscribe button, like, and drop a comment with your location so we can connect over real stories like this. 4 years ago, I was married to Nathan Brooks, the kind of guy Colorado loved, sharp, charming, a real estate developer who could sell snow to a ski resort. We had a good life. Not perfect, but solid. I was running my interior design business, crafting spaces that felt warm yet bold, getting calls from clients in Aspen and Boulder for custom home projects. Nathan and I had a rhythm: mornings with coffee, evenings planning our next big move, a white cedar cabin in the Rockies we called home. Every corner designed by me with love. Betty, my older sister, was always around. We grew up tight, sharing secrets, laughing over wine, her loud personality lighting up every room. She was single, always chasing the next big romance. But I trusted her. She was family. I never thought she'd be the one to burn my life down. It was a Tuesday when my world cracked open. I was at a client's house in Fort Collins, wrapping up a mood board for a mountain lodge, when I got a text from Nathan, working late. Don't wait up. Nothing new. He'd been pulling long hours, but something felt off. Maybe it was the way he'd been distant lately, barely touching his dinner, his eyes glued to his phone. I pushed the thought away, finished my meeting, and headed home early. In our driveway, I saw Betty's red Jeep parked next to Nathan's truck. Odd, but not alarming. She'd drop by unannounced sometimes, claiming she was just in the area. I walked in, expecting to find them joking over coffee in the kitchen. Instead, I found a letter on the counter, half tucked under a stack of mail. It wasn't meant for me to see. The handwriting was Betty's, unmistakable, all loops and sharp edges. It was addressed to Nathan. My stomach twisted as I read the first line. I can't stop thinking about last night. My eyes scanned the rest: words about stolen moments, promises to keep it quiet, her begging him to leave me. I stood there, the paper heavy in my hands, my breath catching as the truth hit. My sister, the one who held my hand at our wedding, who cried during my vows, was sleeping with my husband. I didn't scream or cry. I just folded the letter, put it back, and waited. Nathan came home around 9, looking tired but calm, like nothing was wrong. Hey, you're home early, he said, tossing his keys on the counter. Found something interesting today, I said, holding up the letter. His face went pale, eyes darting to the paper like it was a bomb. Sandra, I can explain, he started, but I cut him off. Don't. Just tell me how long. He looked away, rubbing his neck. A few months, he mumbled. Betty said she didn't mean for it to happen. I laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. My sister didn't mean to sleep with my husband? He didn't answer, just stared at the floor. That's when Betty walked in, her smile fading as she saw the letter in my hand. Sandra. Oh God. I was going to tell you, she said, her voice shaky but rehearsed. You were going to tell me you're in love with my husband? I shot back. She flinched, stepping closer. It's not what you think. We didn't plan this. I pointed to the door. Get out, both of you. Quan. They left, Nathan grabbing his jacket, Betty mumbling apologies that meant nothing. I didn't cry that night. I sat on the couch, staring at the walls I'd designed, the life I'd built, now a lie. The next morning, I called my lawyer, packed a bag, and left the keys on the counter. I didn't look back. I drove to Colorado Springs, to my Aunt Evelyn's house, a small cabin tucked in the foothills. She didn't ask questions, just hugged me and said, "You're stronger than this. You'll see." I wasn't so sure. But I needed out of Denver. Away from the memories of Nathan and Betty. The weeks after were a blur. I holed up in Evelyn's guest room, barely eating, my phone off, my design business on hold, clients emailed, but I couldn't face them. I'd built a name for myself, turning old mountain homes into spaces that felt alive. But now I felt like a fraud. How could I design homes when my own had collapsed? I kept replaying the letter, Betty's words burning in my head. My sister, who knew every piece of me, who'd been there through my highs and lows, had chosen to break me. Nathan, the man I'd loved for 6 years, had let her. I didn't know who I was anymore. But last night, at the Denver Skyline Gala, everything changed. It was 4 years later, and I walked into that ballroom, a new woman, arm in arm with Elliot Harper, a man who saw me when I couldn't see myself. The gala was packed designers, architects, Colorado's elite, all there to celebrate sustainable design. I wore a deep sapphire dress, my hair loose, my smile real. I wasn't there to prove anything to anyone. Not anymore. I was there because I'd rebuilt my life, piece by piece. And it felt good. Then I saw Betty across the room, standing next to Nathan, her hand on his arm, her laugh loud and forced, like she was trying to own the space. She didn't see me at first. Too busy playing the part of the winner. Nathan looked older, his charm dulled, his eyes scanning the room like he was searching for something he'd lost. When Betty's eyes finally met mine, she froze. Her smile dropped, her glass tilted slightly in her hand. She didn't recognize me right away. My face was sharper. Mi energy different. Stronger. Then Elliot leaned in, said something that made me laugh, and her expression cracked. Nathan followed her gaze, his eyes locking on me, his mouth parting slightly. "You good?" Elliot asked, his hand brushing mine. "Better than ever," I said, my voice steady, my eyes still on them. I wasn't there to fight or confront. I was there to show them what I'd become, a woman who didn't just survive but thrived, who turned pain into power. Betty's face said it all. She thought she'd buried me, but I was back, and I was brighter than ever. I want to take you back to when I still believed my life was unshakable, when I thought my marriage to Nathan was the kind of love people wrote songs about, when I saw Betty as my rock, my sister who'd always have my back. This story doesn't start at that gala in Denver where I stood glowing next to Elliot. It starts years before, in the quiet moments of a life I thought was mine forever, when trust was so deep I didn't see the cracks forming beneath it. Back then, our cabin in the Rockies felt like a sanctuary. Mornings were slow, with sunlight spilling through the pine-framed windows, coffee brewing while jazz played low on the kitchen speaker. Nathan would sit at the table, scrolling through property listings, his mind always half on the next big deal. I'd be sketching designs for a client's ski chalet, my pencils scattered across the counter, a mug of tea cooling beside me. We had this rhythm, a dance we'd perfected over 6 years of marriage. He'd look up, flash that charming smile Colorado developers were known for, and say, "You're making someone's dream home today, aren't you?" I'd nod, grinning. "And you're buying half the mountain to put it on?" It was our way of connecting, grounding each other in the chaos of our ambitions. My design business was thriving. I'd carved out a name for myself in Denver's tight-knit scene, turning old lodges and urban lofts into spaces that felt alive, warm, with just a hint of edge. Clients loved how I blended rustic Colorado charm with clean, modern lines. I was getting calls from as far as Telluride, even landed a feature in Mountain Living for a restored ranch house. Nathan was proud, always introducing me at his real estate events as the woman who makes houses homes. His hand would rest on my back, steady and warm, and I'd feel like we were building something bigger than us, a legacy. Maybe. Betty was woven into every part of that life. My older sister, 3 years my senior, was the loud one, the one who'd walk into our cabin unannounced, kick off her boots, and pour herself a glass of Pinot before saying hello. We'd grown up sharing everything: clothes, secrets, late night talks about boys. She was my maid of honor when Nathan and I got married, standing beside me in a sage green dress, reading a speech about family being forever. "You're stuck with me, sis," she said, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. I laughed, believing every word. She gave me a locket that day, engraved with our initials, a gift I wore daily, a reminder of our bond. Betty never settled down. She'd date guys for a few months, then drop them when they couldn't keep up with her energy. "I need someone who can match me," she'd say, over wine at our kitchen table, her laugh echoing off the cedar walls. "Someone like Nathan. You know, a guy with drive." I'd roll my eyes, teasing her. Good luck finding another one of him. She'd grin. But looking back, there was something in her eyes I didn't catch then, a flicker of want. Not for a guy like Nathan, but for Nathan himself. She was at our place all the time. She had a key, would let herself in for movie nights or to borrow my clothes, though she'd always return them with a new story about her latest adventure. Nathan didn't mind. He'd joke that Betty was the bonus sister he never asked for. They'd banter, her tossing playful insults about his fancy developer suits, him firing back about her chaotic dating life. I loved it. Thought it was proof we were a family. But there were moments, small ones, that pricked at me. Like the time I caught Betty lingering too long when she hugged Nathan goodbye after a barbecue, her hands resting on his shoulders a second too long. Or the way she'd text him directly about plans, bypassing me, saying, "Oh, I just figured he'd know your schedule." I brushed it off. She was my sister. He was my husband. Doubt didn't belong in that equation. One night, after a fundraiser in Boulder, we were all at the cabin, a fire crackling in the living room. I was in sweats, curled up with a book, while Betty and Nathan sat at the bar counter, splitting a bottle of Merlot. She was telling some wild story about a date gone wrong, her voice loud, her hands waving. Nathan laughed, leaning in, his eyes bright in a way that felt just a little off. I watched her brush a crumb off his sleeve. "Have fingers lingering? You're a mess, Brooks," she said, smirking. He grinned back. "Takes one to know one." I smiled, but something tightened in my chest. I told myself it was nothing. Just Betty being Betty, Nathan being charming. But it wasn't nothing. The next week, Betty showed up with a bottle of bourbon, Nathan's favorite, a rare one he'd mentioned wanting at a party. "Found it at this distillery in town," she said, handing it to him with a grin. "Thought you'd like it." I raised an eyebrow. "That's a $300 bottle." "Bettu. Since when do you splurge like that?" She shrugged. "Got a bonus at work. Figured I'd treat my favorite brother-in-law." Nathan opened it right then. Poured her a glass first. "To family," he said, clinking her glass. I sipped my water, watching them, the moment feeling heavier than it should. There were other signs, ones I didn't want to see. Betty started dropping by when I wasn't home, claiming she needed to grab something or check in with Nathan about a real estate lead. I'd find her scarf on the couch, her coffee mug in the sink. Once, I saw a text on Nathan's phone from her. "Just a quick thanks for last night. You're the best." I asked him about it. Casual, not wanting to sound paranoid. "Oh, she needed advice about a guy," he said, not looking up from his laptop. "You know how she is." I nodded, but the explanation felt too smooth, too practiced. It wasn't one thing that broke me. It was the slow drip of moments piling up. Nathan started staying late at the office, blaming tight deals, new investors. He'd come home distracted, barely kissing me goodnight. I'd ask, "Everything okay?" He'd nod, say, "Just work, babe. You know how it is." But I didn't know. Not really. Bettu, meanwhile, was everywhere calling, texting, showing up with takeout, acting like she was just being a good sister. You guys need a break? She'd say, unpacking sushi like it was her house. I'd smile, thank her. But deep down, I started to wonder. One afternoon, I came home early from a site visit in Vale. I walked into the kitchen and saw them through the glass door to the patio. Betty leaning close to Nathan, laughing, her hand on his arm. He didn't pull away. When I stepped outside, they both straightened up, Betty flashing a smile. Hey, sis, we were just talking about you. I nodded. Muy voice cool. Sure you were. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing her hand on his arm, his easy smile, the way they moved like they shared a secret. I wanted to be wrong. Told myself I was reading too much into it. But doubt is a seed, and once it's planted, it grows fast. I started noticing everything, their glances, their excuses, the way my perfect life didn't feel perfect anymore. The doubt that had been creeping into my mind wasn't just a fleeting thought anymore, it was a weight I carried every day. Heavy and sharp, cutting into the life I'd built. I wanted to believe I was wrong, that my sister and my husband weren't capable of betraying me. But the signs kept piling up, each one harder to ignore than the last. Nathan's late nights grew more frequent, his excuses flimsier, his phone always angled just out of my view. Betty's visits felt less like sisterly drop-ins and more like calculated moves. Her laughter too loud, her presence too constant. I kept telling myself it was nothing, that family didn't do this, that love didn't bend that way. But I was wrong. And the truth hit me like a freight train on a quiet Thursday night. I'd planned a special dinner at home, just for Nathan and me, hoping to pull us back to the rhythm we'd lost. I cooked his favorite grilled salmon with rosemary, a bottle of Pinot Noir chilling on the counter, candles casting a soft glow across our dining room. I texted him around 5. Dinner's ready when you are. He replied, stuck at a meeting. Babe, might be late. My stomach sank. But I waited, keeping the food warm, sipping wine alone. By 8, the candles were dripping wax, and his plate sat untouched. Something in me snapped. Not anger. Not yet, but a need to know. I grabbed my keys and drove to his office in downtown Denver. The building was dark. Not a single light on. I checked the gym he sometimes hid after work empty. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I dialed his number. Straight to voicemail. He didn't go home. Instead, I drove to Betty's apartment in Lodo. A sleek high-rise she'd moved into last year. Her Jeep was parked out front. So was Nathan's truck. The sight of it hit me like a punch, my breath catching as I stared at their cars side by side, like they belonged together. I sat there for 20 minutes, the engine off, the night pressing in around me. I didn't need to go upstairs. I didn't need to see them together. Deep down, I already knew. When I got back to the cabin, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in the dark, letting the truth settle over me like ash. My sister and my husband, the two people I trusted most, had built something behind my back, and I'd been too blind to stop it. The next morning, Nathan walked in just after 6, his tie loose, his face carrying that fake calm he used when closing a deal. He stopped when he saw me sitting at the kitchen table. The letter from Betty, the one I'd found weeks ago on the counter in front of me. You're up early, he said, his voice too steady. I slid the letter toward him. Tell me the truth. Nathan, no stories. Just say it. He froze, his eyes flicking to the paper, then back to me. It's not what you think, he started. But I held up a hand. How long have you been sleeping with my sister? His shoulders slumped. And for the first time, he didn't have a quick answer. Since the spring, he said finally, his voice low. It just happened? Sandra. He didn't plan it. Kai. I stared at him. The man I'd built a life with. The one I'd dreamed of, growing old beside. And Betty? I asked. He looked away. She said she loves me, that she tried to stop. I laughed. A cold, hollow sound. She loves you? So you both decided to destroy me because of her feelings? He didn't answer. Just stood there, guilt written across his face. When Betty showed up an hour later, her eyes red, her voice shaky, I didn't let her speak. I found your letter, I said, cutting through her excuses. You wrote to my husband like he was yours? You're my sister. Betty. How could you? She stepped forward, reaching for me. Sandra. I swear, I didn't mean to hurt you. It was a mistake. I backed away. A mistake is forgetting my birthday. This is betrayal. You don't get to call me sis anymore. She flinched, tears spilling, but I felt nothing. Leave, I said, pointing to the door. She hesitated, then walked out, Nathan trailing behind her like a shadow. The days after were like moving through fog. I called my lawyer, told him to start the divorce papers. I packed a suitcase clothes, my sketchbooks, the locket Betty gave me at my wedding, which I tossed into a drawer. He didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't break a single dish. I just moved one step at a time, like I was following a script I hadn't written. Friends texted. Some called, but I didn't answer. My parents, Alan and Margaret, left voicemails begging me to talk, but I couldn't face them, not when their daughter had torn my life apart. The only person I reached out to was Aunt Evelyn, my mother's sister, who lived in a cabin in Colorado Springs. She didn't ask for details, just said, "Come stay with me. You don't have to explain." That night, I left the cabin keys on the counter with a note. Take what you want. I'm done carrying this. Colorado Springs felt like another world, far from the Denver skyline that now felt like a graveyard of memories. Evelyn's cabin was small, tucked among pines, with a porch that creaked under every step. She welcomed me with a hug and a cup of chamomile tea, her silver hair pulled into a loose braid. You don't have to talk until you're ready, she said, her voice firm but kind. I nodded, grateful for the silence. For weeks, I barely left her guest room. My design business went quiet. Clients emailed, but I forwarded them to my assistant, Lila, saying I needed a break. I couldn't face the world I'd built, not when it felt like a lie. Every night, I replayed Betty's letter, Nathan's confession, the way their voices had sounded so rehearsed, so aligned. I wasn't just mourning my marriage, I was mourning the sister I thought I knew, the family I believed was unbreakable. Some days, I'd sit on Evelyn's porch, staring at the mountains, wondering how I'd missed it all. The way Betty always found a reason to be near Nathan, the way he'd laugh a little too easily at her jokes. I'd trusted them so completely that I'd ignored my own instincts, convinced myself I was paranoid. Now, with the truth laid bare, I felt like I'd lost more than a husband and a sister. I'd lost the version of myself who believed in trust, in love, in forever. Evelyn would check on me, leaving plates of food I barely touched, saying, "You're still here, Sandra. That's enough for now." But it didn't feel like enough. It felt like I'd disappeared from my own life, and I didn't know how to find my way back. Living in Evelyn's cabin in Colorado Springs wasn't just hiding from the world. It was like stepping into a void where the person I used to be no longer existed. I wasn't the woman who designed dream homes or laughed easily with her husband and sister. I was just a shadow, moving through days that felt endless, carrying a pain that didn't have a name. But slowly, in the quiet of those mountains, I started to find pieces of myself again. Not the old me, but someone new. Someone who could stand up after being broken. Evelyn didn't push me to talk. She'd leave coffee on the counter, set out a plate of biscuits, and go about her day, tending her garden or painting old furniture for her antique shop. Some mornings, I'd sit on her porch, watching the sun climb over Pikes Peak, the air sharp with pine. He didn't answer emails, didn't even check my phone. My design business was on pause, and Lila, my assistant, handled the inquiries. telling clients I was taking personal time. I couldn't face the idea of creating beauty for others when my own life felt so ugly. But Evelyn had a way of pulling me out without forcing it. One day, she handed me a box of my old sketchbooks from college. Dusty and worn. Found these in the attic? She said. Thought you might want to remember who you were before all this. Quote, I opened one, tracing the lines of a cozy cabin I'd designed years ago. All raw edges and warm textures. It wasn't polished, but it had soul. This girl had fire, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Evelyn nodded. She's still in you, just buried under some heavy stuff right now. I didn't believe her. Not fully. But I started sketching again. Small things. Like a reading corner or a fireplace layout. It wasn't for clients. It was just for me. A way to feel something other than loss. Evelyn noticed and started asking me to help with her shop. Rearranging displays. Picking colors for a new wall. You've got an eye, she'd say, handing me a paintbrush. Don't let it go to waste. Quote, those small acts, sketching, painting, moving furniture were like stitches closing a wound. I started walking into town, stopping at a local art co-op where artists gathered to share ideas. I didn't talk much, just listened, letting their passion for creation seep into me. One afternoon, while helping Evelyn rearrange her shop's front window, a man walked in, asking about vintage lanterns. He was tall, with a calm voice and dark hair, wearing a flannel shirt like he belonged in these mountains. You restoring a cabin? I asked. Setting down a lamp, he smiled. Trying to. Got a place up in Manitou Springs. Needs some soul. Evelyn smirked behind him. Talk to her, she said, nodding at me. She's the best at bringing spaces to life. Koge. His name was Elliot Harper, a conservationist who worked on restoring old properties while keeping their environmental impact low. He'd moved to Colorado from Seattle, chasing a cuter life after a messy divorce. We talked over coffee the next week. Not about my past or his, but about design. Sustainability. The way a home could hold stories without losing its roots. You see spaces differently, he said, leaning across the table. Like they're alive. I shrugged, unused to the compliment. I just try to make them feel like home. He nodded, like he understood something I hadn't said. We started working together. I consulted on one of his projects, a 1,922nd cabin. He was turning into an eco-friendly retreat. I suggested exposed beams, reclaimed wood, windows that framed the mountains. He listened, asked questions, valued my ideas without trying to overshadow them. It was professional at first, but there were moments, a shared laugh over a botched paint job, a quiet walk through a half-finished site that felt like more. I kept my distance, though I wasn't ready to trust anyone. Not after Nathan and Betty. Elliot didn't push. He'd show up with coffee, share a playlist of folk music, or tell stories about his old life in Seattle, never asking for more than I was willing to give. Then came the night that changed things. Elliot invited me to a networking event in Colorado Springs, a mixer for designers and environmentalists. I thought I could handle it, thought I could slip back into the confident woman I used to be. I wore a sleek black dress, smiled at strangers, shook hands with potential clients. But halfway through, someone mentioned Nathan's name, a developer who'd lost a big project in Denver. The air left my lungs, my vision blurred, and I bolted for the balcony, gasping like I'd been underwater. Elliot found me there, sitting on a bench, trying to steady my breath. He didn't crowd me, just sat beside me. Kiet. After a minute, I whispered, I'm not the person I used to be. He looked at me, his eyes soft but sure. That's okay. I like who you're becoming. Quote. I broke down then, tears spilling as I told him everything, the letter, Betty's betrayal, Nathan's confession, the way I'd lost myself in the wreckage. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer fixes, just listened, his presence steady like the mountains outside. You didn't lose everything, he said when I finished. You walked away from what was hurting you. That's strength, not loss. For the first time, I felt seen not as the broken woman I'd been, but as someone still standing. From that night, something shifted. I didn't jump into anything, didn't call it love, but I stopped pushing him away. Months passed, and my life started to take shape again. Ich werd moeder. Took on small design projects, local cafes, a community center focusing on spaces that healed, that told stories. Clients started calling again. Not the big Denver names, but smaller ones who wanted heart in their homes. A magazine, Rocky Mountain Design, featured my work, calling me a visionary of warmth and resilience. The article spread, and suddenly, I was getting emails from all over Colorado. Then came the invitation to the Denver Skyline Gala, honoring women reshaping sustainable design. I stared at the email, me finger hovering over delete. Elliot saw it over my shoulder. You're going, he said. Not a question. I laughed. You think I'm ready? He grinned. You've been ready? Now you're just unstoppable. Quote. I didn't go to the gala for revenge or to prove anything to Nathan and Betty. I went because I'd earned it. Because the woman who'd lost everything had built something better. The night before, I stood in front of Evelyn's mirror, trying on the sapphire dress I'd chosen. She walked in, leaned against the doorframe, and said, Look at you, kid. You're not just back, you're blazing. I smiled, feeling the truth of it. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying the weight of betrayal. I was carrying myself. Stepping off the plane in Denver for the Skyline, Gala felt like walking into a new chapter. One where I wasn't running from the past but standing tall in the present. The city's skyline, all sharp glass and mountain shadows, didn't hold the same weight. It used to. I wasn't the woman who'd fled to Colorado Springs 4 years ago. Broken and lost. I was someone else now. Someone who'd built a life from the ashes of betrayal. And tonight, I was ready to show it. The gala was held at the Denver Art Museum. Its sleek angles lit up with golden lights, the air buzzing with jazz and the clink of glasses. I walked in, my sapphire dress catching the glow. Elliot by my side, his steady presence grounding me. I wasn't here to settle scores. I was here because I'd earned it. Because my work, my heart, my fight had brought me back to life. The room was alive with Colorado's elite designers, architects, eco-conscious investors, all mingling under chandeliers that sparkled like stars. My name was on their lips, whispered after that Rocky Mountain Design feature. People nodding as I passed, wanting to talk about my sustainable home projects. I smiled, shook hands, felt the confidence I'd rebuilt settle into my bones. Then I saw them, Betty and Nathan, across the crowd, standing near a bar draped in ivy. She was in a crimson dress, her laugh sharp and deliberate, trying to pull eyes her way. He stood beside her, polished as ever, but his charm seemed worn, like a suit that didn't fit quite right anymore. They hadn't noticed me yet, too caught up in their own performance. And that was fine. I wasn't here for their attention. I was here for me. When Betty's gaze finally landed on me, her face shifted, her smile faltering like she'd seen a ghost. Nathan followed her stare, his eyes narrowing, then widening as he recognized me. He didn't flinch, didn't look away. I just stood there, letting them take it in the woman they thought they'd broken. Now radiant, stronger, untouchable. Elliot leaned close, his voice low. Want me to stay close? I shook my head, smiling. I'm good. And I was, for the first time, I didn't need to prove anything to them. My life, my designs, my peace. The man beside me was proof enough. They approached eventually, hesitant, like they were stepping into a storm. Nathan spoke first, his voice careful. You're doing well. I hear. He tilted my head, my tone cool but calm. I am. New city. New life. Betty tried to jump in. Her words rushed. It's been years. I saw your magazine feature. You're killing it. Her smile was brittle, her eyes searching mine for something forgiveness. Maybe. Or a crack she could slip through. I sipped my drink, letting the moment hang. Thanks, I said simply. I found my way. Nathan shifted, his hands in his pockets. I've been meaning to reach out, he started, but I cut him off. My voice soft but firm. No need. We're past that. What? Betty's eyes darted between us. Her voice thin. Can we talk? Just for a minute? I looked at her. The sister who'd once been my world, who'd stood beside me at my wedding, who'd written love letters to my husband. I used to think I'd have 1,000 things to say to you. I said, my words steady, but now I realize my life says it all. I lost everything back then, my home, my trust, my family, and still, I came out better, stronger, free. Nathan's jaw tightened. Betty's eyes glistened. But I wasn't done? You didn't destroy me? I said, my voice clear, carrying the weight of 4 years. You pushed me to find who I really am. So thank you for that. I paused, letting it sink in. But you don't get a place in my story anymore. I turned, walking away. Not out of anger, but because I'd arrived at a place they'd never understand. Elliot was waiting near a window, his tie loosened, a glass of bourbon in his hand. He smiled as I approached. Everything okay? I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in years. It's perfect. We clinked glasses, the music swirling around us, the gala fading into a backdrop for the life I'd built. As the night wound down, I stepped outside onto the museum's terrace, the Denver skyline stretching out before me. It didn't feel like a city that had broken me anymore. It felt like a placid conquered, a place that had watched me rise. The flight back to Colorado Springs was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels full, not empty. Elliot sat beside me, reading a book, his shoulder brushing mine. I looked out the window as the city lights fell away. The mountains, a dark outline against the sky. I wasn't carrying the past anymore. I'd let it go, piece by piece, until it was just a story, not a weight. When we landed, Evelyn was waiting at the airport, her truck parked crooked, hair grin wide. Look at you, shining like you own the damn stars, she said, pulling me into a hug. I laughed. I danced through the fire. Ev, just like you said I would. Quote, back at her cabin, everything felt familiar. The creaking porch, the smell of pine, the hum of crickets outside. But I wasn't the same. I wasn't a guest in someone else's home or a woman running from her pain. I was whole, rooted, ready for whatever came next. In the days that followed, I unpacked my suitcase and my fears, sorting through memories I no longer needed to carry. Elliot stayed for a few days, helping with a client's eco-lodge project, cooking breakfast in bare feet, reading poetry under the stars. Like it was the most natural thing. He didn't ask for promises, didn't need me to define us. Let's just get building, he said one night. Standing on the porch, the mountains framing him, I nodded, leaning against him. Deal. Quote. I launched a new studio, Peak Pulse Designs, named for the heartbeat I'd found in my work again. Clients came for spaces that felt alive, intentional, built to heal. I didn't chase the big Denver contracts or the spotlight. I designed for people who wanted homes that told their stories, not just mine. Every project was a reminder of what I'd learned, that pain builds walls, but courage tears them down. One morning, sitting on Evelyn's porch with a mug of coffee, I pulled out a journal and wrote a letter I'd never send. It was to Betty, the sister who'd shattered me. Thank you for breaking what needed to break. You forced me to choose myself, to rebuild from nothing, to find a life bigger than the one you took. I don't hate you. I don't need you. I'm free. I closed the journal, took a deep breath, and looked out at the mountains. This wasn't just a comeback. It was a rebirth, and I was living it on my terms.